turn off the news, right now. Whatever highly edited, perfectly rehearsed press briefing you just watched on the cable networks.
Pretty soon I'll be declaring the Hormuz Strait a territory of the United States. The only one that has control of the Strait of Hormuz right now is the United States Navy. We have a blockade that's been infallible. It's a steel wall, and we let people in that we want to let in.
داره انجام میشه. نیروهای مسلح درگیرش هستن. به هر حال اونها صاحب نظر اصلی در این خصوص هستن. ممکن هست که به زودی به نتیجه
Maritime Trade Agency reported perhaps another tanker was hit by a drone within the last 24 hours.
Is a complete illusion. I have been on the phone since 3 a.m. with guys who live deep inside the Pentagon's windowless rooms. The guys who stare at live, classified satellite feeds for a living. And let me tell you, they are not popping champagne. They are sweating. Their voices are shaking. We didn't lose a battle. We won. We won with such overwhelming, jaw-dropping violence that we accidentally shattered the entire global economic system. You probably saw the viral clips today. United States Secretary of War Pete Hegseth standing out there on the deck of the USS Gridley, looking dead into the camera, claiming the Strait of Hormuz is ours. He literally bragged about an ironclad blockade and an infinite wall of steel that no navy on Earth could ever pierce. He says we own the water. And the crazy part? Tactically, he is absolutely right. We just pulled off what might be the most terrifying masterpiece of kinetic warfare in human history. But there is a multi-billion-dollar catch that nobody in Washington wants to admit on camera. A massive, terrifying blind spot that turned a flawless military victory into a complete disaster. Stick with me to the very end of this video, because I am going to drop the final detail that changes every single thing you know about how modern wars are actually fought. We need to talk about Operation Epic Fury, because what happened out there in the Persian Gulf wasn't a messy, drawn-out firefight. It was a 90-minute deletion. It was a surgical decapitation of an entire nation's defense grid. And it happened so fast, the enemy generals didn't even have time to finish their morning coffee. For the last few weeks, the tension has been boiling over. We had American destroyers redirecting dozens of ships, enforcing this massive naval blockade. Iran was getting desperate, taking shots at commercial tankers, trying to prove they still had teeth. They were banking on their ultimate trump card. They honestly believed they held a permanent knife to the throat of global trade. But the American military theory has evolved into something straight out of a science fiction movie. We don't fight fair. We don't line up and trade punches. We use speed, deception, and overwhelming technology to completely mentally break the enemy before the first actual bomb even drops. And that is exactly what happened. In the span of a single feature-length movie, the United States erased half a century of Iranian military buildup. But to really grasp how insane this operation was, you have to understand the physical map of the battlefield. Let's look at the actual geography, because this is the part the talking heads on TV never explain properly. The Strait of Hormuz is the literal jugular vein of planet Earth. A massive chunk of the world's energy supply is forced to squeeze through this one tiny, highly vulnerable strip of water every single day. But the Persian Gulf is not some vast, deep, open ocean. It is incredibly shallow. Imagine you are the captain of a monstrous supertanker. You are driving a vessel the size of the Empire State Building, completely loaded with 2 million barrels of highly flammable crude oil. You cannot just free roam around the water to avoid trouble. The bottom of your ship reaches so deep into the ocean that you are physically forced into a very narrow, highly predictable deep water trench. You have zero options. You have to follow the invisible highway. And sitting right on the absolute edge of that trench, like heavily armed toll booths, are three tiny islands: Abu Musa, Greater Tumb, and Lesser Tumb. For 50 years, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps treated these rocks like their own personal fortress. They didn't just throw up a few chain-link fences and guard towers. They brought in heavy mining equipment. They hollowed out the literal mountains. They poured millions of tons of reinforced, high-density concrete. They packed these islands to the absolute breaking point with long-range anti-ship cruise missiles, massive early warning radar arrays, advanced electronic warfare jammers, and secret subterranean pens hiding swarms of heavily armed fast attack boats. The Iranian military proudly called these islands their unsinkable aircraft carriers. For decades, they were completely convinced that no naval force on Earth could survive sailing past that gauntlet. They thought they were invincible. But here is the fatal flaw in that military theory. In the modern era of warfare, an unsinkable aircraft carrier just means a massive target that cannot run away. Permanence is not protection anymore. If you build a bunker and you never move, you didn't build a base. You built your own tomb. You just gave the United States military a highly convenient targeting solution. We didn't guess where their weapons were hidden. We had classified space-based infrared sensors mapping their power grids from orbit. We tracked the heat signatures of their fiber optic cables buried in the sand. We watched their guards take smoke breaks from space. We knew their entire defense grid down to the absolute millimeter. We knew it better than they did. When CENTCOM finally gave the green light for Operation Epic Fury, they didn't just start blindly dropping bombs. They started by hacking the enemy's reality. The airspace over the Strait of Hormuz suddenly flooded with a massive swarm of ADM-160 MAL decoys. These are miniature air-launched drones. They aren't packed with explosives. They are packed with advanced electronic warfare transmitters that trick enemy radar into thinking they are massive, heavy bomber jets. Put yourself in the shoes of an Iranian radar operator sweating inside a concrete bunker on Abu Musa. You are staring at a green screen. Suddenly, your monitor lights up with an apocalyptic wave of American B-52 bombers and fighter jets screaming right at your face at supersonic speeds. Human instinct takes over. Pure, unfiltered panic sets in instantly. The alarms are blaring. People are screaming orders. They scrambled, flipping on every single high-powered fire control radar they had. They blasted the sky with active radar energy, desperately trying to lock onto the incoming threat so they could fire their surface-to-air missiles. The very second they did that, it was game over. Because flying completely silent, totally invisible to enemy radar, gliding right behind those decoys were flights of American F-35C Lightning II stealth fighters. These fifth-generation jets weren't even opening their weapon bays yet. They were just acting as flying supercomputers. They vacuumed up the exact GPS coordinates of every single radar dish that just foolishly revealed its position. They captured the data, processed it in milliseconds, and instantly beamed that targeting information to American guided missile destroyers sitting safely completely over the horizon. They got played. They lit up their own positions to shoot at Digital Ghost. Before the bunker crews even realized they were tracking fake airplanes, the real hammer dropped. Dozens of Tomahawk Block V cruise missiles came skimming over the ocean waves. We are talking about weapons that can fly through a literal window from 1,000 miles away. They fly so incredibly low to the water that the physical curvature of the Earth hides them from radar until they are literally right in front of your face. They slammed into the radar arrays in a synchronized, terrifying wave of fire. In a matter of seconds, the islands went completely dark. They blinded the enemy entirely. With the early warning grid wiped completely off the map, the airspace filled with the apex predators of naval warfare. The AGM-158C, LRASM, That stands for Long-Range Anti-Ship Missile. But calling this thing a missile is an insult to the engineering. It is an insanely smart, stealthy hunter-killer drone. You just shoot a swarm of them into a general area, and they actively talk to each other. They use onboard artificial intelligence to hunt their own targets. They look at the battlefield, decide what the highest threat is, and dive in. They ripped right through the exposed missile silos. They hunted down the command posts. They collapsed the entrances to the underground boat pens, permanently burying the fast attack speedboat swarms under thousands of tons of bedrock. They systematically dismantled the entire surface capability of the Iranian military in the Strait. But CENTCOM wasn't done. They wanted to make a point. They wanted to erase the absolute deepest, most secure IRGS command bunkers from existence. And this brings us to the strike they are definitely keeping off the evening news. High above the chaos, practically touching the edge of the stratosphere, American stealth bombers opened their payload bays. They dropped the most terrifying non-nuclear weapon in the entire United States arsenal, the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator. Listen to me, you cannot comprehend the scale of this weapon until you see the numbers. We are talking about a 30,000-pound bunker buster made of solid Eglin steel alloy. It is the weight of 2 fully loaded school buses dropping from the edge of space. It does not explode on impact. It uses sheer, unimaginable kinetic velocity to drill straight down into the earth. It can punch through 200 feet of solid ground or 60 feet of reinforced military-grade concrete before the smart fuse finally detects that it has breached the subterranean chamber. And then it detonates. When those monsters hit Abu Musa and the Tums, the seismic shockwaves literally registered on earthquake monitors across the Persian Gulf. Those deep mountain bunkers didn't just collapse. The catastrophic pressure wave vaporized the infrastructure. It turned the most secure command centers into permanent, inaccessible tombs. In exactly 90 minutes, the United States turned a 50-year fortress into smoking, radioactive-looking rubble. We established Secretary Pete Hegseth's ironclad wall of steel. 0 American casualties. Absolute operational dominance. We proved to the entire planet that nobody can fight us face to face. But here is the terrifying twist that has politicians completely losing their minds behind closed doors. This is the secret they do not want you to realize. We own the water. We physically control the Strait of Hormuz. We have destroyers doing laps around the smoking ruins of those islands. But if you pull up the live commercial shipping data right now, the reality is a complete nightmare. It is a ghost town. Before this strike, before Operation Epic Fury, you had 120 to 140 massive cargo ships and supertankers moving through that strait every single day. The lifeblood of the global economy, pumping normally. Right now, as I speak to you, it is 39 ships. Not 39 ships a day, 39 ships a week. The traffic has completely collapsed. The water is wide open, defended by the most lethal navy on Earth, and the cargo ships are absolutely refusing to go anywhere near it. Why? How does that even make sense? We won the war. We cleared the bad guys. Because of one undeniable, chilling reality that all the stealth fighters and 30,000-pound bombs in the world cannot fix. You cannot bomb an insurance premium. Think about the guys in the tailored suits sitting in the fancy glass boardrooms at Lloyd's of London. Think about the actuaries, the accountants, the mathematicians who write the insurance policies for a $200 million supertanker carrying $100 million in oil. They do not give a single damn about Pete Hegseth's wall of steel. They don't care how many F-35s are doing victory laps in the sky. All they see on their spreadsheets is a chaotic, active, highly unpredictable war zone. They know that just one lucky drone, or one stray sea mine floating in the current, or one desperate asymmetric reprisal attack could turn their insured asset into a toxic fireball. The environmental disaster alone would bankrupt them. The actuaries in London don't care who is winning the shooting war. They only care about the ambient risk, and right now, the perceived risk of sailing a floating bomb full of oil through the Strait of Hormuz is so incredibly high that the maritime insurance premiums have spiked by hundreds and hundreds of %. The shipping companies literally cannot afford to buy the insurance required to move their boats. The profit margins are entirely wiped out. The math is totally broken. So what do? They drop anchor, they hide, they violently reroute their vessels thousands of miles around the southern tip of Africa, adding weeks of transit time and millions of dollars in fuel costs to every single shipment. We achieved perfect tactical supremacy. The military executed their job flawlessly, but it resulted in total strategic paralysis. Because the enemy doesn't actually need to sink a US battleship to win. They don't even need to sink a cargo ship. All they have to do is make the water look dangerous enough to freak out an accountant in London. We destroyed the physical threat, but the economic reality is freezing global trade in its tracks. Prices are about to explode. Supply chains are snapping. And right now, there is not a single weapon in the United States arsenal that can fix a math equation. The rules of war have changed. Victory isn't just about who controls the physical battlefield anymore. It is about who controls the risk. We erased the islands. We own the water. But right now, the risk is winning.